Hello and welcome to this live episode of our Revolutionary Rich series, where I've been diving in deep with phenomenal women who are millionaires, seven-figure earners, and who have created wealth in a way that is revolutionary, and getting to share wisdom with you. Hello, Martha. Wisdom with you from the journey, the money journey, the wealth journey of liberating ourselves, our communities through the work that is being created in our businesses and in the name of regenerative wealth. So we have our guest for today that I'm super excited to be bringing in because I adore this woman. She is someone who I have gotten the honor and the pleasure to get to experience and get to connect with. And I know that you're going to absolutely love receiving from her wisdom. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her in right now. Leslie LaVita. Are we on? Yay!
We did it. We made it
We
happen.
did it. Hi, gorgeous.
Hi. Hi. It's so nice to feel your energy.
Likewise. There's such a kindred synergy and
Mm.
soul sister connection with us that I feel so grateful and so honored to share. And these conversations have been so deep and so real because of the quality of humans that I get to have sisterhood with. And so I know that you being here is just such a gift and such a blessing for the people that are listening live and those who get to listen to the replay. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
Absolutely.
So I'd love for you to just introduce yourself, in any way that feels good for you, in your work and who you are and who you be. And yeah, we'll get to just flow with, is there a connection issue?
I'm
We'll get to just flow
good on my
with,
side. I think I'm good
um,
over here.
okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. So thanks for inviting me. I'm like really touched and feel just really privileged to be able to collaborate with you and contribute to your community. For me, one of the cornerstones of the work I do is really this idea of giving access to all people, especially people who traditionally haven't had access. So I know you asked me to introduce myself, and I'm like, because I've gone through a big identity shift and shed just even since we last talked. And, what identities have I had? Really, so that, those of you who are listening to the podcast can kind of like maybe you share some of these identities. But, I have the identity mother and wife. I've had the identity executive corporate chief of operations. I've had the identity of business owner. I'm half Chinese, half Mexican, so I have those as well. I have the identity of being middle aged. I'm 51, although I don't know that I really so much identify in that way. I have been most recently, I've been identified as having a branding agency and being a brand strategist and a business strategist. And most recently, I have been a business coach. And in the last few years, I did have a program and I still have it called Out to Launch Academy. And it really was giving people access to take their gifts and genius, that their experience and everything that they've done in their 9 to 5 out of the format of 9 to 5 and plugging it into being a consultant or a freelancer or a coach, which allows you to be your own boss. Because I believe that there is a system that is set up that has us working so hard and so tired and so exhausted and so distracted working in these like larger companies, and it really is like a system of repression, if you will. And that the more of us who are willing to step out of that matrix and start our own businesses and do what feels like our heart is calling us to do, we're making the same money, if not more money. I mean, I have clients who've like tripled, quadrupled their income and work less. What would happen to the world if more of us had more time and more money? What could we be doing with that extra time and money out in the world? So I have been a business coach, and like more newly, like really stepping into my soul codes and who I am, not only as a business leader, but as a spiritual leader. And really, honestly, like didn't ask for it, but like very called to more like the path of the high priestess and really seeing business as a way to alchemize your
Mm,
life, right? It's like you can get your life and just turn it to gold through this business process. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. My beautiful one.
that's kind of it.
Yeah, that would be it. That's my best explanation.
Oh, it's so good. I'm really grateful that you brought in, like, right from the get-go, the alchemy work. This has been a reoccurring theme, and I'm not surprised
Mm,
at all in this Revolutionary Rich series. It keeps showing up in different ways and
mm,
different
mhm,
flavors around, what we get to create from what was into what is. And one
mm.
really, like, I have resonated with you since the moment that we started to talk more deeply about, our journeys, and what I've gotten to witness in you is, the constructs of the system where it is, yeah, like the 9 to 5, and then how that gets even transferred into business and entrepreneurship of still like overworking, over
Yeah.
exhausting, depleting, stressful, like that being the vibe, that being the energy, and the way that is taking away our agency, our freedom, our sovereignty, because we're still operating under those like harmful or oppressive or detrimental systems or structures. And then the alchemy work of reclaiming a life where you get to have the kind of freedom, the spaciousness, the ease, the flow, to even access our spiritual gifts, our spiritual wisdom that
Yeah.
for a lot of us, I mean, for all races and all genders, but especially my experience as a woman of color, and I'm curious if this is true for you as well, like the reclamation of our ancestral gifts and wisdom and being able to tap into those powers. So I think that that's a huge part of alchemy as well. And I wasn't expecting to go here, but I love that it showed up early conversation of being able to use, your spiritual calling and infusing that with alchemizing from the old outdated patterns that were showing up, in your life and with your clients, and into the kind of life that feels like it's so much more soul aligned, like so much more heart
Mhm.
aligned. So I'd love to get into that, and we can, bring in money into the conversation as well around,
Yeah.
this.
I mean, it's all one big
Yeah.
thing, right? I feel really touched lately because of as I've been like kind of more stepping into my power and truth and talking to more women, and I'm like noticing this thing where like women are like, oh, my mom had abilities and powers, and my grandmother did. And it's almost like in our generation it gets more and more lost as it goes down
Mm,
generations, because there's like shame around it, or like fear around it, and not fear of your power, but fear of what happens to you if you were to share it or express it. And for me, it's been a wild journey, just stepping into and finally getting like my nervous system and my environment and myself ready to be like, and this is who I am, period. Because it's like I remember like whispers of conversations with my mom. My mom is Mexican, and she'd be like, talking about the ojo, or like this, that, like all these things. And I remember my dad was, much more, even though he's Chinese, he came from like very Western thinking, and he was a doctor. And my mom would have these ways that she was gonna like rub my
mm,
stomach with something, and like all this like kind of more magical mystical stuff. And he was like, that's not science that, and there was like a real wrongness around it. And so I'm seeing that a lot of us have through the generation kind of like gotten dismembered
Mm-hmm.
from this magic and mysticism and ability, and now we're starting to remember
Mm-hmm.
and put it back together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. I love the timing of this because I know that you've been on such a journey more recently.
Yeah.
It's reminding me, my experience and my experience with my community and my clients is like we go through these different series of awakenings, like spiritual initiations that like bring light to the things that we maybe weren't as open or ready to see before. And for me, so much of that journey in the past, let's say 5, 6 years, has been like very connected to feeling free in my body with money and beyond money versus like the ways that it was very much passed down to feel like constricted and to feel like tight or to feel yeah, like restricted in all of these different ways. So like to open the body, I know you like brought in the nervous system before, like to open the body and to feel the nervous system, which is like a huge part of my work, and to be anchored in our spirit and our soul as we go through these massive initiations that can really like rock us and have the medicine that we
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to like receive ourselves, to be able to share and to give and to serve the world, which as medicine women and as spiritual leaders, it's such a huge thing to give ourselves permission to lean in, where it's like, oh my gosh, this is bringing up all of the things, and
Yeah.
this is exactly what I need to be going through to to ascend into this you know next level, next evolution, next growth edge of who I'm here to be. So I would just love to hear from you, whatever you feel called to share around this most recent initiation that you've been going through and what has been showing up for you to, um, be able to receive the medicine from God, spirit, universe, multiverse, benevolent ancestors, whoever your higher forces of support are, and then the way that it's showing up in your work, in your world right now, and how it's been serving and expanding you.
Yeah. I'm like, let's get right into it. um,
Because I was not expecting to ask it, but I feel like it's so
yeah.
out.
I'm gonna just like, let's radically transparently go in. I haven't actually shared this publicly, but here we are, and I feel called. So, just a really short clip on my journey.
Yes.
Um, in my 20s and 30s, I had a seven-figure business and did extraordinarily well. And at 36 years old, I completely just bombed. Like, filed for bankruptcy. My house was going into foreclosure. My business closed. My marriage was over. I was like a newly single mom. I was like 36, hot mess. And I want you guys to get this because many of you aren't even 36, right? So like there I was, 36, like my life is over. And that's when I went into corporate America and kind of like rebuilt myself and like restarted to like feathering my bed, if you will, right? And I like started to work on like chip away with a very long-term vision, got my MBA at 40 years old, had my second son at 40, and then I end up getting pushed into like resigning from my um executive position. It was just like a whole male woman. We don't need to get into it, but I realized that it wasn't aligned, and so I left. So in 2014 I started freelancing and then consulting and had my branding agency, and that did really well. Then in 2020 I reinvented, as many of us did, and became a business coach. And in 2023 my business did $1.4 million, so seven figures in 2023. And the same thing last year in 2024. And this most recent initiation. So I went to Egypt in April of 2024 and I got just so highly aligned. I mean, I didn't know what I was going there for. I just knew when the invitation came, my whole body was like, you're going on this trip, even though my mind was like, wait, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense logically. But I went on this trip and just went on this initiation of like, actually, for the first time in my life, redefining what success actually looks like on my terms. Because for the first 50 years of my life, so I'm getting feeling like so emotional. For the first 50 years of my life, all of the success looked what other people said success looked like. And so there I was, just like high type A, high achiever, perfectionist, performing, just constantly jumping through people's hoops of like, you want to do $10,000 months and then $20,000 months and then 50 and then 100 and they'll take it to 1 million, and in that whole process, I started realizing that like I felt myself was so lost in it. And so in this last initiation, it's really been redefining success. And yeah, of course, in this last chapter, I'm like, know that I'm very privileged that I have feathered my bed and that, I'm not living, dollar to dollar as I was at 36 years old. But for me to say, like, I'm going to walk away from a 7-figure business because it's not aligned was like a huge, like, just I had, they call it the dark night of the soul. I did like the dark night of the soul 10-month remix because it's,
The dark year of
it's
the
like,
soul.
it totally feels crazy to be like, I have this $1 million business, but what I noticed is like, yes, there were tons of people who were like, oh my gosh, Leslie, you changed my life. I made 200 grand, 300 grand, 400 grand. Then I started noticing women after a year or two out being their own boss. They're like, it was really amazing at first to have all my freedom and to be making more money. And why am I still not happy?
Mm,
Right. And so I started getting these feedback loops and I realized it's like, if we don't have the systems for rest and relaxation and our nervous systems aren't there to hold the success, it still won't feel like success.
exactly.
You'll have numbers
Exactly.
and you'll have people looking at you just like I did when I was a corporate executive and they were like, you're so successful, you have a 6-figure income and you have the title and you have the car and you have the. But if you, even as a business owner, yeah, I mean, listen, it's way better to be a business owner than to be an employee. It's definitely a step up. But if, if you're not a business owner and you can't give yourself permission, then what are you really doing? And so that's really been like the new evolution of what I'm doing is much more layered. It's like, yes, the tactical, tangible, let's start a business. And then there's like the nervous system and the self love and the self-worth and the self-value. And then there's like you exploring your soul codes. It really is like a 3-layered process. And when I built my business the first time, I only had the first
Mm,
layer.
mm,
And then, I myself had like a nervous system crash and then went and like really started opening up my soul codes. And so now I'm like seeing just like this much bigger realm, much bigger possibilities for us to live really spaciously, really abundantly, like really beautiful, juicy, impactful lives. So
mm.
yeah, it's been a
Uh, Thank you for sharing this with
amazing.
uh it's so I feel the freshness of it.
Mhm.
And it speaks to this, this whole series in general and Revolutionary Rich, which is one of the core aspects, and it's in my work and in Here We Grow, of embodied wealth, you know, with all of the external things that can be sourced for validation or for whatever, idea of what success should be. It really doesn't matter. And you're such a beautiful, testament to this. And especially the client examples that you brought in as well of like, yeah, what are the big numbers if you don't actually feel the depth of wealth in your body
Mm.
and the difference of how you show up for life when that is something that's cultivated and that's grown, and that the nervous system is rewired around, like to feel the fullness, the richness of life and of truth and of spirit and of soul and of heart in your body, like that's what makes all of the other things matter and have
Yeah.
meaning.
You know, it's like I am wealthier than I've ever been in my life in this moment. Like, really, really juicing every moment with my family. It's like feels so wealthy and rich to just be like, you know what? It's 2:30 and I'm done with
Yeah.
my day. I'm gonna pick my kid up early because he wants to be picked up. You know what? Today I'm just gonna go have lunch with friends on a Tuesday. I'm not gonna because like that grinding hustle mentality, it's so baked into our being, our nervous system, our environment, our culture. And the real wealth is when you break from that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've made all kinds of money, I would way rather make $10,000 a month and be spacious than be making 50 or $100,000 a month and be overwhelmed and stressed and like literally on the verge of like having a heart attack, having a stroke. But you know
Mm-hmm.
what really hits me is like who I used to be with my kids and my husband and the people that I cared about, like sharp, impatient, like always in a rush, that energy. And then it just kind of like created more of that energy. And I do believe that, and I want to make this really clear. I don't think that just because you're relaxing into life and slowing down that it's going to actually limit you. I just said if I had to choose between $10,000 a month spacious versus $100,000 a month stress, I would choose. But you don't have to make that
Yeah.
choice. And I really know and like really see that once you learn that you don't have to prove yourself for the money,
Mm.
right? It's like you don't, the proving, the overdoing, the always on the go, that's like some external chasing,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it not worth it. But if you are just sovereign and embodied and speaking your truth, which is the most magnetic thing in the world, all of that money is going to be coming. It's inevitable that it comes. So I do want to make that really clear because I feel like there's a lot of collapse around like you can't be wealthy and spiritual. You can't be wealthy and, peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not, these are not either
Yes.
ors.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's one of the really beautiful pieces about like regenerative wealth, the way that I love to like teach it and work with it and embody it is like regenerative wealth. It's like it's with and beyond money. So it's like the way that money comes, the way that money flows, the way that money overflows into your life, the way that it's stewarded back out into the world, the way that you're holding it and growing it and expanding it in your body, then is reflected in your external reality. And so with wealth, in the conversation that we're having and what it means to us, it's like ease, spaciousness, quality connection and time with the people that we love and care about, like being able to be of service in what is true and speaking to you, which is, this spiritual path that's like taken on a whole new initiation. It's like all of those, like money gets to support that and it doesn't cancel it out. But we were taught that, at least I was. I feel like, a lot of what I'm receiving from you is you as well. And it's like a dominant societal teaching, indoctrination, that it's like you can't have a lot of money or circulate a lot of money or hold wealth at bigger or wilder or wetter levels and have like a liberated nervous system that feels like a sense of ease and relaxation and trust and stability and security from within. It's not being sourced from outside of you. It's actually coming from the power of your being, and then it's amplified and reflected in the relationships and the connections that you have in the world. And that's the difference between toxic capitalism, where it's like extractive and exploitive and it's draining, versus regenerative wealth, where it's like, oh, like the more I receive, the more I receive, and the more I give, the more I give. But it's not, one isn't taking away from the other, which is another huge teaching that I think that we're taught with money, and like the greed and the shame and the guilt that comes, at least for me, and I imagine it might be true for you as well, with being the first in your lineage to be able to bring together big money and spirituality and living your dreams or living in a way that was outside of what was available for your parents or your grandparents. And, you know, in my world, we call this lineage liberators, liberating our lineage through our work and through the way that we're reclaiming a healthy and nourishing relationship with money. And I love that you brought this in around it's not an either or. Like it actually does, it gets to be a both and, but it takes that work, you know, the somatic work, the nervous system work to actually anchor that truth in, to anchor that belief in, to anchor that new system into your way of being, into your way of life, because the old system will continue to play out its
Yeah.
pattern, its old stuff until we clear it from the body and like, okay, this, we actually can have it all. We can live in this way that wasn't accessible, wasn't available, that felt like it was, you know, just out of reach for women like you who are so powerful and so beautiful and who are
Oh,
creating, you know, these movements.
thank you.
Like, yeah, I can right now create an entirely new reality for myself and for my
Mhm.
family and deepen in the richness of what it is that I actually want to create. And it can be this, and it can be this, and it can be this, and it can be this. It doesn't have to be this or this. So I love that you bring this in, and it makes me curious. I want to get into, you know, if there was a moment, like a breakthrough moment or an aha moment where you noticed there was a more fundamental shift in your relationship. You know, we're talking about spirituality and money and business. I mean, maybe even in this last, you know, dark year of the soul, dark year of the soul, um, where, yeah, there was a fundamental, you know, energetic shift or just tangible shift in some way in your life where you're like, oh, something maybe clicked and it changed the trajectory from what was to what is or what can be.
Uh, I mean, if we were looking for like this pivotal moment, I would say it was me trusting my body and truth in this one moment. The one moment of me, you know, I was just thinking about this the other day. There's been a few times in my life where I just trusted what I felt here in my body and just ignored my brain that was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time that happened, I ended up going to my future mother-in-law's party and met my husband. Like I was like, a hell no way am I going to this party. But there was something where I almost felt like I was being pulled, and I went and I met my husband, who is like truly my dream match. And then the second one was last year when I got the invitation to go on the Alchemy of Egypt. Like I knew it was almost like every cell in my body just like zoop, and I just felt like pulled and called, and my logical brain was just like, hell no, like 5 figures, 2 weeks, hanging out with a bunch of women. This sounds like because I've always been such a tomboy. You know, it's like I grew up in like skateboard, snowboard, like that's the business I had in my 20s. So I've never really bonded with women, and especially like women who are in their feminine. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, type A, tough cookie women, sure, but not like soft women. And so there have been so many moments, but being in that container for 12 days was really huge. Just like being in the container, taking that time, giving myself permission to go on a trip like that, pour into myself so fully and wholly. And then also like being in Egypt and like soaking in those like ancient codes. I think for me, it was just like a big remembrance and revelation, because it's like a part of me woke up
Mm-hmm.
that like my abilities and intuition really ramped up during that 12-day period. And I started really seeing things much more clear. And then when I came back, but you know, it was almost like the moment I registered and decided I was gonna go. And then I already knew, like, you know what, when I get back from Egypt, I want to travel with my husband and kids for the whole month of July in Switzerland and Italy, and just like be together. And my husband was like, are you crazy? Like, what? Who, like, gonna take a month of vacation? But to me, I just started realizing that it's like the moments of, of people spending together. I mean, you're asking me like, is there one moment? And I'm like, oh, but like what I have seen that my sister hadn't passed away in August of 2022. It's like there isn't a single defining moment, but when I look back as far as like when a lot of puzzle pieces came together, it was definitely like in Egypt last year, which is why I'm going
Hell
back in October,
yes.
because it's like I don't even know that I could say I've scratched the surface. I think I just like got like a piece of dust from the surface, and I really felt home there. And I don't want to like trail off onto Egypt because I could talk about it all day, but I think it's really like, we've been talking about how indoctrinated we are, and there's like these systems in place that create these like perceptions of life that are really false.
Mm-hmm.
And if we return ourselves to who we were as children, and I know for some of us, we had really tough childhoods, so it's like even thinking like early on, but I do believe that all of us knew at some point this part of us that we were like fully alive and known in who we are.
Mm.
And then through society and through like life, our perception of who we are started to close in on these systems, and even just like our experiences as a human, and then we see life and like the possibilities of life so narrow, when really, it's like they could be blown wide open, whether it's going on a trip to Egypt or working with a coach or putting yourself in a container. It's like having that intentionality of, here's the future I want to create. These are the conversations I want to have like breakthroughs around, and then being like, how do I somehow, some way get into the rooms, get into the conversation so I can start. Your words create your world. So how do you choose how to be in a place where the words that are creating your world are aligned with what you want?
Mm.
Yeah. So many things, but I think that also was like a defining moment when I got that. Like, oh, I just need to be intentional of like who's in my ear. Like this podcast, it's like, yeah, you want to have wealth, like the new version of wealth, the version of wealth that needs to be demonstrated to the world. We need to have leaders who show what holding wealth is like and how giving wealth can be. Not just like, oh, I got this car and I'm taking this fabulous trip and I'm flying first class. And I get it. Like I've done that content too. I got the bag, I got the shoe. Like I get it. But it's like also leadership and showing and demonstrating. And with this wealth, I can also fund causes. I can also give others who never had any privilege the chance to have access. There's like so much change could be made, because we can fight and say like, oh, capitalism, blah blah blah, like, oh, money shouldn't run the world. Well, guess what, it does. Like, that's just the truth, and we can't change the game until we all learn how to play it and like win at it, and then we can change the
Mm.
rules.
Mm.
But otherwise you can't change the rules.
Mm. That line.
That's true.
uh, and it's so true because one of the things that happens on such a subconscious level for so many people, so many of us, is like trying to win the game while hating the game. Um, and I mean, we can't feel powerful with money if we feel disempowered with money. And the reality of my experience and what I'm hearing from you, and what I think is so valuable in this conversation, one piece here is the way that, using money as a tool, using money as an exchange, using money as an amplifier of what is in alignment with spirit, with soul, with values that you get to expand on. One of them being expanding consciousness. I think of all of the mentors I've invested in. And I love that you brought in Egypt, because Egypt is really special to my soul. And it was a massive initiation for me when I went to Egypt as well. And before I even started my business, I was going to different ancient sites all over the world. And every time I would go to an ancient site, I had a remembrance. You bring remembrance.
I love this.
There was a remembrance in my spirit, in my soul. I was like, oh, like I have been here before, and I'm remembering this way of perceiving reality beyond the constructs and the limitations that I had before I got here. And sometimes it takes actually being physically
Mm,
on sacred land.
yeah. Yeah.
I would
Walk
say
in barefoot.
barefoot. Yeah, it's I'm thinking of, yeah, all of the pyramids and the ruins that I've been to. Egypt was one of the more profound ones because I mean, this is fun. I don't think I've talked to you about this, but I found out that I was an Egyptian queen while I was there. That was one of the codes that came in.
Oh, yeah.
Wild. I was like praying on the beach and it came through in meditation. I was like, oh, like you've come home. And I was like, whoa. And there was like another journey I went through where I was like receiving codes from inside of the temples. And anyhow, all of this to say that a huge aspect of what wealth gets to be like and what it looks like, for leaders like us is it's expanding our consciousness as well, right? So our ability to see what was otherwise not seeable, and then to be able to
Mhm.
share that as generously and be the embodiment to activate and inspire and empower others in that as well. And the way that money allows for that in a greater capacity, and the stewarding of it is just that reflection of, oh, okay, like when I pour in this way, it comes back in all of these other ways. And that's a huge part of, wild overflow is my method, my magic. And I've been really dropping into this, and I love the way that you're speaking into, when I pour into these ways, it pours back into me. So
Mhm.
whether that is in the containers, in the mentors, in the places that we go, it's like, where am I consciously choosing to steward, to invest this flow of money, this flow of energy, and then allow it to pour back, not only into me, but into the larger macrocosm of the world
Yeah.
of liberation. Because in pouring into me, you have become how much more, beautiful and powerful of a wife, of a mother, of a teacher, of a friend, of a colleague. And with those resources, it's like, yes, we get to pour into the causes, the missions, the organizations that we are, aligned with, that we care for. And so it's really flipping the script of that old paradigm and programming, where it's like fighting having more money, even when it's on an
Yeah.
unconscious level, even when it's on a nervous system level. Because again, before, money used to mean for us, and I'm sure this is resonating with the people listening live or in the recording of, before, it used to mean, yeah, like more work, more stress, more hardness. But then when we really rewire that on the nervous system, and I love that you're bringing this here, and the way that I'm just expanding it is like, what if it gets to be, and it actually does get to be, but this is the invitation to get to deepen in our bodies and anchor into, is like, what if this actually gets to be the best possible thing for the world, for me to be a conscious, sexy steward of wealth, of wild, to let that not only free me, but to free every single person I touch,
Yeah.
because of the way that I'm holding myself differently with this support system. It's a regenerative support system, an ecosystem that's like, oh, yeah, this
Mhm.
is uplifting me, but this is uplifting my sisters. This is uplifting my brothers. This is uplifting not only my local community, but this can uplift people across oceans, across seas, who are, suffering and in pain. And so I think it's something that really, it feels so good to get to drop into with you, of this, like, the spiritual liberation that also comes with the financial liberation, like letting our
Mhm.
spirits come home to ourselves, letting ourselves remember who we are beyond even just this lifetime, but the lifetimes that we've gone through. Because Egypt, it makes me think of my past lives. I'm like, I remember
Yeah.
in all of the ancient sites, and we share like our Mexicana lineage, and I think of my
Mhm.
ancestors on my Mexican side that I didn't even have any connection with until I started to have the space in my body, in
Mm,
my
yeah.
mind, to be able to connect to them. And I started to hear messages and to hear wisdom and to hear guidance from my benevolent ancestors, who are medicine women, who are, the women that I didn't even know I had any connection to in this lifetime, until I went through the initiations that I went through. And so I love that you've been bringing in all of these really beautiful, like, angles, um,
Thank you.
yeah, of what wealth gets to expand, not only for us, but for beyond us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been really amazing to be with you today.
Mm-hmm. It's been so good. So I would just love, you know, to hear if there's a piece, because you've given so many really, really juicy pieces already, but if there's one last piece that comes through of wisdom that you would love to offer for anyone who's listening to this live, who's listening to the replay around, the journey to reclaiming wealth in a way that feels like it's fulfilling and meaningful and heart-centered, that comes from your own lived experience, that comes from, maybe the part of your journey that you're in right now. If there's anything that comes through that you think someone is meant to hear right now, I'd love to hear anything that you'd like to share there.
Yeah, I mean, what's coming through that I want to share is it's not it's borrowed wisdom
Okay.
from a medicine man that I got to see in Cairo, and his wisdom is on my feed if anybody wants to hear directly from him. But he really beautifully. Oh, this was another one of those, like, the moment where you're like, oh yeah, oh God, like a click moment. He really distinguished very beautifully the difference between a light worker and a light slave.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is a light slave is doing all the spiritual work and doing all that, understands so much of the spiritual world and the giving, but a light slave doesn't understand receiving. And you cannot give what you can't have. And so a light slave is just always kind of like never able to make their full impact and experience their full power because maybe they resist receiving or they resist abundance. And for me, layering in daily things to receive has been a big game changer for me. And I still work at it. Like, it's still a muscle like that I'm growing and developing. But for me, every morning to like spend time with myself, I actually have a program called Sacred Systems. If anyone's interested, it's like $22. It's like the cost of lunch, and you get like all these different ways that you can layer in throughout your day. And I think the big thing is like, it's not about these like big, massive shifts. Everything that I'm about is like, did you know? It's like so fascinating. 1% shift a day, 1% shift consistently every day is 3,800% growth in 1 year.
Wow.
So if you can just do 1% shift a day in 1 year, you're like
I love.
38x. The, the catch is, how do you stay consistent when you're only doing 1% a day, right? It's these micro movements. And so, I work with a lot of people and they're just like, it's so hard to receive. And I'm like, I get it, but it's like, you're training your nervous system to be something different. And it doesn't have to be receiving for a whole hour or a whole afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Try receiving for a minute or 5 minutes. It's like when you're in the whole spin, instead of just like, I've got to do more, just try to let go of like the one last email that you don't write today and you push till tomorrow. Or try going out in the sun and doing some breath work for 1 minute. It's like amazing. And so, just like, layer in and have that devotion to 1% a day, create a structure around you so that when you're like, nothing's happening because it's only 1% a day, you keep going so that you're not caught in the light slave. Is like that'd be like my big wish for everyone.
So, so good. So good. The micro shifts. This just came through for me. The micro shifts for the macro movement.
It is, that's exactly what it is, because when we try to go big, it just, like, our nervous systems can't handle it. We don't have the structures for it. It's slow. It's like, think big, start small, slow micro shifts. Micro shifts do create the macro movement.
So good.
Thank you for inviting me to today's micro shift.
Thank you. And I know that you did share about your program, but I also want to invite you to share, how people can get to know you or any other ways that people can enter into your world and step, more intimately into your space.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I am known on social media as Let Go and Discover, because it's about letting go who we think we are and to discover who we can be. Feel free to, and like you can DM me. I'm in the middle of doing an overhaul of like programs. I'm in this like very intimate season right now of doing, I haven't done one-on work in years. I am taking on like some one-on-one work right now just to really connect with people who it's like really understanding who my soul clients are and what my soul work is. And I'm developing a new program that's really about all of this in such an expansive way. And yeah, I do have sacred systems, which allows you to see little small things that you can layer into your day to receive. And then the quantum collective is like the much more expansive, getting transmissions from me on a daily basis, lives, and just really kind of like having it up level and have really that structure and container to keep the 1% a day. So those are my two main ones right now.
Thank you
for asking.
Yeah, my pleasure. And the way that we end our episodes, I love to ask, what does revolutionary rich feel like to you right now in your life? Or what is feeling revolutionary rich for you right now?
Revolutionary rich for me feels like alignment and spaciousness, and then just that receiving, like those things together. And I feel like that is the baseline. And then you have to keep building that spaciousness, that receiving, in order to keep up leveling your wealth barometer, right? So thank you for inviting me to this. It's been so magical.
Much. I love this. I love you. I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah.
Happens. It's happening at some point this year, but I don't know when yet.
Always here to contribute to your beautiful community.
Thank you, my love. Alrighty. So thank you so much for those of you that have tuned in to this episode. And as you know, I love to hear feedback and what really lands for you, what resonated, what got sparked, what got activated. So please feel free to DM me and let me know how this supported you or impacted you. And we have Edge of Expansion as the first free portal I've done in over a year in 2 weeks.
So
I'm so excited. April
it's so exciting.
27th. Yeah. It's wild. When I realized, I was like, wow, it's been that long since I've done a free portal. So I'm super excited for that. So if you're watching this before April 25th, you can join for free by just DMing me edging. You can find the link in my bio. After that, the price is rising to $333. So make sure that you join us before we're live. And I will see you all in the next episode of Revolutionary Rich. Bye.
Bye.